Hey, what's up? Tonight we're talking about how to remove verified negative accounts on your credit report. The very first thing that you want to understand is that nothing has actually been verified. They're never going to send you anything to actually verify it, and there's been no actual investigation. Now, make sure you watch to the end of this video because by the end of this, you're going to understand how to not only remove the negative items that have been quote unquote verified, but also where to access this checklist so that you can go and use this to get your actual results, right? You see, so many people get stuck when the bureaus say, oh, it's verified. Well, now what do I do? How do I move on to the next round? Well, that is where this comes in, and we're going to start with the difference in methods. And this is very, very important. Maybe you think that it's too basic for you, but you're watching this video because these things are still on your credit report. And hey, if you understood this stuff, maybe they wouldn't be. So watch this video to the end. All right, so here's the deal. You don't want to send in any templates. And there's a very, very important reason why. You see, when the bureaus get your letter and they read it, what they're doing is they're looking to see if the letter has been received before. In other words, a template, right? Because you're sending in something that you didn't write right then based off the actual information on your credit report. So when it comes back that it is, now they're like, hey, guess what? That's it. Verified without investigation. And that's why you're going to see these things come back just a couple of days after you sent it as verified. How could you have possibly verified it when, hello, I just sent it a couple of days ago? Well, it's because you didn't take the time to go and find the reason on the credit report that would remove the account. But that's okay. I'm not berating you. I'm showing you how to stop doing that and start getting results. So we have a couple of things you shouldn't be doing. Section 609, which has nothing to do with contracts and proof and everything to do with your right as a consumer to get a copy of your credit report. Other templates like 1681s, and yes, I am also guilty of sending those. When I first started doing this, before I figured out about factual based disputes, I was sending those, all right? And that's where you're just, like, hey, give me a general verification, do a general investigation. I have no idea why this should actually be removed. Here's some law. What's the method of verification? Here's my third request. Maybe a 605 no permission letter, or I guess I could throw in section 609, right? There's nothing that is strategic. There's nothing that points out and says, hey, this is why you need to remove it. And never, ever, ever dispute online. I'm not even going to go into that one because I already have other videos. And identity theft. If you are using identity theft, you are setting yourself up for failure if you are not an actual victim, all right? Just so you know, you can do 6 months in jail, and that's for fraud, all right? And that's not even talking about perjury for doing the affidavit. Now, when you're using factual, just look at how many other dispute reasons that you have. This goes all the way down. We have determined strategy, attack biggest impact, notice a dispute violation, target next best reasons. Then you have 17 other options available. Evolution line method, date last reported to prove no investigation took place, send out next corresponding dispute for creditor or creditor collector, targeting the facts and nothing more, how to actually do it, and when and where. Now, that looks like a lot more than just saying, here's my first request, here's my second, here's my third, so on and so forth. Now, the next part that you want to understand is that each and every element on your credit report actually influences the other, all right? So let's just go over this real quick. So we have different elements like payment history, first date of delinquency, and violations, right? We have our canons, date last active, date last paid, and notice of dispute. And then we have our squirt guns, things that you should just not be using, like limit, open date, and terms. All right. So now that you see that part, the most important part of the dispute process is understanding, like how I said, how one account element correlates to another. So if we fail to see how the date last active influences the natural reporting of the account and how each of the following elements influence the former, our ability to achieve deletions on the negative account decreases as we go along with our rounds. Now, what that means is the longer you dispute, the harder it is to remove the accounts. All right. So let's just go look at this real quick. So I do have another video on this, and that's why we're kind of speeding through this process, but date last active indicates when the account will naturally fall off the credit report, right? It's the date when the 7-year time period begins and is the biggest form of retaliation of the bureaus to change this date to keep the account on the credit report longer. This is also called re-aging and adds another 7 years to reporting and is a violation to re-age the account. Now with date last paid indicates the date the account was last paid by the consumer, and in the event the account becomes charged off and never paid again, the date last paid should become the date last active, should be around this date, right? And then when you submit a dispute, it's required that a notice is entered to your credit report within 30 days of receipt that says disputed by consumer, right? So if it's not entered, it's a violation of Section 623. Now, this way, other creditors will know that the account may have an inaccuracy, and it's a great way to catch the Bureau's creditors and collectors with a violation, okay? Now, payment history. The payment history is where it all starts. If late payments are reported inaccurately, then the date last paid will be reported inaccurately, and the date last active will be reported inaccurately. And if the date last active is reported inaccurately, the account will not be removed within the correct time frame. And it all begins with the payment history, right? Now, let's talk about first date of delinquency real quick. Continuing with the late payment flow, the first date of delinquency can throw off the entire reporting. And an example would be if all three bureaus report a different date, this would mean that the account would naturally, without interference from a dispute, be removed according to the statute of limitations. And you could see a difference of even 6 years. So it would go date last active, date last paid, notice of dispute, and then payment history and first date of delinquency. Now, talking about the flow, let's look at the dispute impact mapping. And again, if you head down into the description, you can actually go check these out yourself and have direct access to them so that you can go over them at your own convenience, all right? This is really, really simple, but this is where understanding how all of these influence the other gets you results. If you don't understand this stuff, then you won't be able to use it, and instead, you're going to be doing things like sending out the wrong letters, such as a 609 or a 1681 or disputing online, right? So if you look at the dispute funnel properties, you're going to see that date last active, date last paid, and notice of dispute have the highest probability of removal, all right? So I'm going to try to move this up here, but it's not working with me here. Here we go. So the dispute funnel process properties shows you that there's an extremely high probability of deletion when you're using those top three. Now, when you go down to first date of delinquency and activity after the close date, now that's a 30% probability. And then now when you are disputing the things at the lower part of the impact funnel, like monthly payment, high balance, balance, and status update, unless they're inaccurate or blatantly inaccurate, now you're only at a 20% probability. Now, what about the last two that you shouldn't be using? Limit type terms and open date 8% and not mine 2%, right? So obviously there's a huge difference. So when things come back as verified as accurate, don't freak out. What you want to do is find the next best dispute reason and challenge based on factual or tactical, or send out a challenge based on what it was that they said. How did you verify this as accurate? So don't ever think that your process is totally and completely lost. All you need to do is, as I very simply put step by step in the checklist, all you need to do is find the next best dispute reason using this breakdown and information, and use this process, this proven process, to get your results. All right. You always have to remember that it's not about what they do or don't do or say or don't say. It's about what we do. And what we do is use the information reported by the bureaus to actually get our results. Okay. So if you want to see the rest of this, like I said, head down into the description. I'm not going to go over the rest of this here because it's a little bit much, but if you want to access this, like I said, head down into the description and you will be able to find it in this checklist. All right. So if you want to see if I could do this for you instead, if this is just too much, head over to my740.com and schedule a call with me, and I will see if I can help. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow.